traveler was able to make it here safe and sound.
Yes.
Father God, I pray that we'll be attendants tonight to our Bible study. We want to thank Brother Greg and start teaching this evening service. Father, I pray that if anyone else on their way, that you'll be with them. In your name, amen.
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 Thank you, brother. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I hope everyone's week has been good thus far, and it's good to be back in the great state of Alabama amongst my brothers and sisters here in the Lord. I thank you all for your prayers on last Sunday and the prayers that were prayed before we left. We had a safe trip there, and as you can see, a safe return. And the weather was nice, and the flight was good, going and a coming, as the old folks say. So we're certainly thankful for that. Jackie and I, we made it in last night, and was able to rest up a little bit and make it on back. So it was a very productive trip. I asked that we read up to chapter 10, and so basically 9 and 10, I didn't go into a whole lot on 9 that week before, but it wasn't a whole lot there being discussed. Hold on a second. I keep my phone handy just in case somebody needs me. And that's what's, I'll call him back. Okay, but as we get over to chapter 10, we see that King David is fighting the forces of Saul still as he's trying to establish his kingdom and so forth. And when we get on over to verse 4 and 5, within that, they took David's men who were Hebrews and shaved off their head and beard and all that stuff. And that was basically a mark of shame for Hebrew men. So I just wanted you to mark that, if it was anything else in that. Now, does anybody else have anything they want to show in that? That basically what David is fighting battles and steadily progressing and killing off the enemies. I mean, for an overview, that's basically what's going on. Now, when we get to chapter 11, we know that this is when most people who know the story of David is basically two main things in his life that people focus on, and that's the death of Samson, not Samson, the death of, what's the big guy's name?
Goliath.
Philistine, the Goliath, and then when he made the mistake or walked into the mistake or whatever you want to call it, of taking another man's wife and sleeping with her. And so he came out in the evening, after the evening tide or what have you, and he saw Bathsheba after the time of a woman had passed and she was purifying or cleansing herself, and David saw that she was a beautiful woman. And in seeing that, his wants, his desires, his self-interest got the best of him, and he called for her to come unto him, and the Bible says he lay with her and so forth. Now, you know, in discussing this story, people say, well, she didn't have a choice. Did she have a choice or didn't she have a choice? Now, some people say, well, he was the king. But did she have a choice? Now, that's the question I want to just discuss as we go through chapter 11. Did him being the king take away her choice from coming up to his room? Talk back to me.
No.
Well, I don't think it would.
Okay, get the mic.
I don't think it would void her her having a choice.
Okay. But have you, well, let me poll who I'm talking to. Have y'all ever heard where folks say she didn't have a choice?
Yes.
Okay. So what I just want to ask in here, do we feel like she didn't have a choice? Do we feel like that David was the king, and if he wanted his way with her, she couldn't refuse, or, I mean, talk back.
I said, I said last week that she didn't have a choice because he was king, but I understand the question better now, that she did have a choice, because she could have refused.
Okay, anyone else? Any more comments on that?
Yeah, please. Basically agreeing with everybody else said. You know, she did have a choice, but, you know, with the choices, you know, the consequences behind, we don't know what would have happened with her telling him no. You know, could have been further consequences behind her saying no, but
Okay.
she did have a choice.
Do you have your Bible open? Why, since you have the
2
mic?
Samuel.
Yeah,
chapter-
I just want to use you, since you dual purpose, to read verse 3.
And David sent and inquired after the woman, and one said, "Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?"
Now, that is telling. Somebody schooled David on who this was before or after he made the inquiry. Now, David, what choice are you going to make even after information was provided to you who this was?
And David sent messengers and took her, and she came in unto him, and he lay with her, for she was purified from her uncleanness, and she returned into her house.
Okay? You know, as we dig into that, we weren't there, and the only way we know what happened is by way of the Holy Spirit revealing what went on. But it doesn't look at all like she refused or even put up any kind of fight. At all. It didn't say. Now, the reason why this is important is because when we get on over in the story, when we're reading about Tamar and Amnon, okay, we're going to see that the Holy Spirit reveals some stuff in that transaction. Okay, but in this transaction, she came in unto him and he lay with her. No fight, no discussion, no nothing. And so in laying with her, we know that she conceived and ended up becoming pregnant. Does anybody have anything to share on that? Brother, you got anything?
Well, I mean, just to your question, could it be? And like I said, we don't have any insight on what the mind state was when she didn't put up a fight because he was the king. It doesn't say, but to your point, she still had a choice to go or not to go. It's like sometimes today with people when they hear a man is a preacher, whatever he say, it goes. They'll go. They won't even fight it. They won't question it just because of the position he's in.
Right.
So, like I said, we always have a choice to do right or to do wrong.
Right.
But like you said, just in this case, with her not putting up a fight, could it be? And the Bible doesn't say.
Correct.
Could it be that, okay, he the king, so I'm going? Because I think about who was it, Esther? When the king called for, and it was made known, if you don't go when the king called, this could possibly happen to you.
That was Vashti.
Vashti, because she was removed from her position because the king did call
Right.
and wanted to show her off, and she said no. So, like I said, there's nothing in the Bible that says that was the case. But like you said, just wondering what the mindset could be.
Exactly. Thank you. Anyone else, sister?
Because back at that time, you were supposed to obey the king, right?
Well,
In certain situations.
yes, ma'am. But remember, we're talking about the Hebrews to whom the laws were given.
Yes.
And we know when we go back to Leviticus, Deuteronomy, adultery was not permissible.
At all.
So David knew exactly that when the man made known to him, isn't this Uriah's wife? David knew right then that should have put the brakes on.
But he already had a plan.
But David didn't put the brakes on.
No.
he went on and did what he wanted to do in that moment of weakness and self-interest. And she knew she was married. Now, her husband, let's dig into the circumstances of this. Her husband had been gone away, evidently, maybe for a while, and she was young, and her hormones was up, and it could have been from a state of vanity too, that this is the king calling for me, kind of what they call it, starstruck. This is King David. Oh, I get a chance. It's kind of like the groupie mentality, to where if Michael Jordan coming through town and all of the women try to find out where the hotel room is, and not just Michael Jordan, any pro ball player, football, basketball, baseball, hockey, golf, whatever.
Right.
The women track, they spend their whole time tracking where the teams are going to go, so that they can put themselves in the presence to, make that an accomplishment.
Yes.
Just vanity from the main brain. But in that, we know that deal went down. She conceived, ended up having a child. We know the story that David then is plotting in his slickness to cover up the situation for what it was. He called for Uriah to come back from war. But let's listen to some of the way this transaction went down. Verse 6, someone who has the microphone. Chapter 11, verse 6.
And David sent Joab, saying, Send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent Uriah to David.
Come on.
And when Uriah was come unto him, David demanded of him how Joab did, and how the people did, and how the war prospered.
So he's making small talk with him.
That's all.
How you doing? How's everybody doing? How's the war going? Knowing all the while what you've done. That's human. That's man. The man, read on.
And David said unto Uriah, Go down to thy house, and wash thy feet. And Uriah departed out of the king's house, and there followed him a mess of meat from the king.
Now, you see, everybody that's putting forth kindness. See, this is why when we're trying to understand Christianity as it is referred to, but the Christian walk and Christian faith, the Christian faith goes farther than just being kind. You can be a kind devil. But if we focus on the Christian walk just from the lens of kindness, you're going to get tripped up many a time with the devil.
Yes, sir.
Because the devil, the book said, will appear as an angel of what?
Light.
Of light. Doing what? Deceiving people. So the Christian walk is not just about how sweet and kind and nice and gratuitous you can be. It's about following the statutes and precepts of God. And sometimes those following those statutes and precepts of God are uncomfortable. Sometimes, instead of kindness, they're harsh. Sometimes, but when we've been branded that Christianity is kindness, we've missed what the Bible is teaching. And Jesus was not always kind when he walked the earth. When he went in John chapter 2 and verse 15, and he saw those devils in there, changing and taking the advantage of the people, and taking the temple and then turning it into a stock exchange. Changes of money. God was nowhere on their mind. And so therefore Jesus was not kind. The Bible said he took a scourge, platted it up, overturned the money table, and ran them out of the temple. You see, when he sent word back to Herod, he said, you go and tell that fox. Jesus, see, the way they've crafted in Jesus from this soft and really effeminate way it's a misrepresentation of what the Bible is actually teaching. That's not the Jesus of the Bible. And Jesus was kind. He taught kindness. But the Christian walk went further than kindness. It went further than that. And that's what I'm simply trying to get over. Because this man here, David, a man after God's own heart, he's being what?
Kind.
Very kind. Even making sure he get a good mess of meat to eat. Go down and wash your feet. Go down there and be with your wife. How's the war going? How you doing? But he's already laid with the man's wife and got her pregnant.
He know he did wrong.
Knew he did wrong. So no, you just can't, because see, the trick's still being played today, and it can be with any group of people. It can be with any group of people. Just because somebody opened the door for you, perform a kind act, pay for your meal or something, and you be so quick to then let them off the hook and say, you know what? He's so nice. No, and then you telling somebody about the person. No, I don't believe that. Listen, you better learn to listen. Instead of being so gullible to go off a kind act. Because a kind act is simply what it is, a kind act. But what is it motivated by? Now that's the question. David's kind act was motivated to cover up an injustice of sleeping with another man's wife and getting her pregnant. Questions, comments?
To the point that if Uriah wasn't the man who he was, and dedicated to his calling, I would say, David would have allowed him to go home, sleep with Bathsheba. She pregnant already. David would have allowed him to think that this baby is his.
That's your baby.
Yes. Yes.
What would David have been living at that point?
A lie.
A lie.
Yes. Yes.
See, God loved David so much so that he didn't let David live
Yes, sir.
a lie.
Yes, sir.
And the sad part about it, so many people today are living a lie. And when we were talking earlier, coming into the class, Sister Tina and I, we were just talking about why some people can read this book, get a good understanding, no misunderstanding, got a real good understanding of what it's teaching. But for whatever reason, won't turn and obey because they are living what?
A lie.
And they ain't ready to stop lying. They ain't ready to stop lying to themselves. They ain't ready to stop lying to their neighbor. And they ain't ready to stop lying to God. They living a lie.
But bro, with that being said, like you said, God stopped him from living a lie because he gave him an opportunity to change. And David fessed up to what he did. And a lot of people that's living a lie, God has given them opportunity to fess up to what they've done. But they won't fess up to it.
They won't fess up. They will. Thank you for that great comment. Anyone else? Yeah, it's best, man, to come clean.
Yes.
The brother preached a sermon here back a couple weeks ago. The first thing we're going to have to do is be honest with our what?
Self.
Be honest with yourself. Put it on the table. All right. So now, being the man that he was, verse 9, what does the book say?
But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord, and went not down to his house.
Now, when David saw that he didn't go down to the house, he said, okay, I got to figure something else out here. So jump down now to verse 12.
And David said unto Uriah, tarry here today also, and tomorrow I will let thee depart. So Uriah abode in Jerusalem that day and the morrow.
Read on.
And when David had called him, he did eat and drink before him, and he made him drunk. And at eve he went out to lie on his bed with the servant of his Lord, but went not down to his house.
Now, was David being kind to the man?
Yes. Very.
Yeah.
He's being very kind. He's feeding him. He's giving him whatever he wants to eat and drink. So much so to the point to where the man even gets full, you know, intoxicated.
Yes.
Okay, but the man was still faithful to,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yeah, he was a good man in the sense of being his warrior.
Yes.
He was loyal, honorable,
And he know where he's supposed to have been.
Knew where he was supposed to be. The man said, how can I go and be laying with my
Yes.
wife and my other brothers out here fighting on the battlefield?
Yes.
That's an honorable man.
Where David was supposed to have been.
Where David was supposed to have been because it was the time of war.
Yes, sir.
Now, yes, now tell me this. Who was David supposed to be taking out? We've been studying about it all the way up. Who was David? See, when I first started reading it, without understanding, going back and really going forward, you're like, well, the time of war, who he supposed to be fighting? Now, who is he supposed to be fighting?
The Ammonites. Not the Ammonites.
Well, yes, they was one of them.
The Moabites.
Come on,
Was the Hittites?
come on,
The Philistines.
come on. Come on, y'all, you naming them. I'm giving you credit for them. All the mites.
That's it.
Jebusites, all.
Yeah, all the mites. Canaanites. See? Yeah, they supposed to be. David was supposed to be. Now, who did the charge first go through when they crossed over the Jordan? Who was the warrior that was assigned to go over and start the job? Who was that warrior? Well, go on back.
Joshua.
Joshua, and who else was with him? Caleb. So we know that as we can keep the succession going, see, I'm just going back, tying in dots for you. When Joshua came over to Jordan, God gave him the charge to go through and do the job. Keep doing the job. When Joshua died off the scene, what was the people supposed to continue to do?
Keep killing them all.
Keep doing the job. All right. Then Joshua was a what? J. Joshua was a judge. All right. So now the time of the judges continued to move forward. Okay, it got to a point to where we know the children, the Hebrews, the children of Israel, they were not being faithful like they ought to. And in not being faithful like they should, when Eli died off the scene, then Samuel, we know, came on the scene. Now Samuel had some boys, didn't he? Now Samuel's boys, was they faithful? Now what did the people say about Samuel's boys? You don't have to go into a dissertation. What did people rehearse back to Samuel about his boys?
That they not like him.
Right. Now, what did they want now? Now they spotted out what the boys wasn't doing right. So they used that as justification to then demand a what? A king. Now, God said, okay, tell them what all is going to go with this. Samuel went and did just that. And he told them what was all going to go with this king business. They said, we don't care. We want to be like the other nations. We want a man to lead us and not God.
Yep.
So now God then appointed who? Back in the previous chapter.
Saul.
Now, Saul.
That's what they wanted.
That's who they wanted. How was his stature? What was Saul's stature? Tall, good looking, Bigfoot
He
man.
was scary.
But he was what?
Hiding, ducking, and hiding. And
Ducking and hiding behind the stuff.
Because it wasn't what God wanted him to have.
Now, but did God, let me, this is, you know, I'm doing a probe.
He allowed it.
Oh,
Yes.
well, God allowed it, but this is what I want to ask. Did God commit to him to change him into what he wanted him to be?
Yes, he did.
yes.
How? What was he going to do for him? He was going to do what for him? Turn him into what?
Another man.
Another man. And what did God do to prove to Saul that he was with him to show him that he was going to turn him into another man? He starts with a P. Prophesying. So Saul, so the people were, Saul, is he now one of the prophets? Is he one of the, they knew something was going on. He's able to prophesy. So God is working with Saul, showing the people that God is with him, showing Saul that God is with him.
Through Samuel.
Through Samuel. Now, but Saul, did he allow God to change him into that other man? No. By not allowing God to change him into that other man, what did Saul become?
Or evil man.
He became an evil man.
But to go back to your question in the beginning about
Okay. your
Go
wife
ahead.
was talking. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
And then I'll come to you.
Was he already evil?
You got talking to
Was
me.
he already evil before God made him a king? Did he have those tendencies?
That's a good question. She said, was he already evil? Now, pay attention to the word, and that's why I stressed the word. Was he already evil?
Seems like it.
Evil. Listen to my word.
No,
No.
I don't think.
because the evil spirit had to come up on him.
There you go.
No.
That's a good question, though. Okay, sister?
God sent that evil spirit upon him, didn't he?
Later on,
Because
of his refusal to be obedient to what God was telling him to do. Okay, now, but I like the word she used because she said, wasn't he already evil? Okay, I like that. Thank you, sister. And the answer is no. He was not evil. Did he have weakness?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did he have deficiencies?
Yeah.
Yes. The reason why I wanted to make that distinction is because sometimes we will categorize people
Yeah.
who have weaknesses
Right.
and deficiencies
Mixed up.
and castigate them as being
Evil.
oh wicked.
evil
Oh wicked.
or wicked. And that's not the case.
Right.
What we all have weaknesses. We all have things that we have to strengthen and become better at and to become more efficient and so forth in. We all have that. And the only person that can help us with that is who?
God.
Did Saul allow God to change him and build him?
No.
No. So much so, who then took up the space that God wanted to occupy in Saul?
See,
Then he became.
The evil spirit.
See, if we don't let God lead us and change us, fast forwarding, I continue to make this statement as we move on through the book. God was trying his best to work with those people. Oh my God, it wasn't on him. I told you to make you ashamed to be called a child of God. It'll make you ashamed to be called a Christian. It'll make you ashamed to be called a human being. To see that God saw man's weaknesses. He saw our needs. He saw all of that. And he gave us grace, mercy, time. Oh my God, he sent prophet after prophet. Oh my goodness, he sent everybody trying to say, look, come on, get yourself together. Boom, boom, boom. I know what I have for you, Jeremiah 29:11. I know the things that I got planned for you. I'm not planning to do you evil. I'm planning to do you good, to prosper you and so forth. And when you read, when you get, most folks just focus on chapter 29. When you go back to the beginning of the chapter and read it all the way up to 29, them folks was cutting a buck. So when he got to chapter, we said chapter, but when he got later on in the letter,
Yes, sir.
he's letting it be made known. I could have killed all of y'all many times over,
Yes, sir.
but I didn't. Now, so then the man of God had to say, through God through the man of God, to tell the people, look, I don't want to do what I'm going to have to do to y'all. They paid him no mind. They paid him no mind. So at the time when Jesus came on the scene, what had God done? See, most people who don't go back and do what we're doing and read this Old Testament all the way up, you're leaving out, as the brother may mention not long ago, you're missing a lot of history. So most people, when they pick up in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John and read from there, and you see where Satan, the demons and devils and so forth, just entering in, taking over people, just possessing folks. And so people say, I wonder why that was so. The reason that was so is because when you go back doing like we're doing now, God said, okay, y'all don't want to let me be your God. You don't want me to lead you. He let the devils have them.
Yep.
That's how the devils was taking over. And when the man get his house clean, if he didn't invite Jesus in to be in his life, guess what what God did then? Okay, we got your house clean.
Yep.
But if you're not going to invite me in to fill the void, okay, I'm going to step back out of the way again. And how many other wicked spirits is the devil going to do?
7.
God let the devil just take him on back over and bring more wickeder ones in his place. See, that's the context in which happened when Jesus came and the people were just being taken over by devils and stuff. That's why. Because they refused, leading up to that point, to let God lead them. And that's what Saul failed to do. Now we get to the man after God's own heart.
Bro, just real quick.
Yes, please.
With Saul, with Bathsheba, and Uriah, to your question in the beginning, did she have a choice? You see, all three had a choice. One of them made, out of all three, one made the right choice. It was Uriah, which still cost him his life. But all three, when God wanted to change Saul, Saul made a choice. I'm not going to let you change me.
Yes.
When Bathsheba was called by David, she had a choice not to go, but she went. David charged Uriah to go home. But what was his decision?
Just say that.
I'm not leaving my call. And so when God, and I say all that to say, when God has called you and you are walking in your calling, no matter who calls you from that, you walk with God. You choose to, I say that, you choose to stay with God.
Yes, that's a great
Yeah.
catch, observation with that. Uriah made the right call.
Yes.
Now, was Uriah of the 12 tribes? He was a
He was a
Hittite.
Hittite.
No. So the reason why I point that out, that's bad.
Yes, sir.
When the man that's making the right call is not even in the promise with God from the 12 tribes.
But you go to the New Testament, but
We use that today.
Oh,
We can use that today among the church. The people that not in the church do more for God, and then the ones in the church.
exactly. Exactly. And this is why we have to be ever so careful. Because the commands and statutes of God are to be observed and obeyed.
sir.
And it's for humanity. Now we understand context and all of that in its proper place.
Yes, sir.
But that's what God got on to David about later on. He said, you've done something that brought shame on the whole nation.
Yes.
You've done something that even some of the Gentile folks haven't done. And so that same thing applies with what she's saying. And sadly, in that respect, people judge the church off what they see
Yes.
members of the church do.
Yes. Yes.
No,
What they do or fail to
or
do.
fail to do that they
Yes.
should be doing.
Yes.
And by doing that, then it gets the people confused because they say, wait a minute, you saying I need to be in that church where you go, but I'm seeing the way you live it. And then they make the false application of making the Bible be based on what an individual is or isn't doing. No, let God be true and every man a what? See, the Bible gonna be true. And the Bible goes on to say over the book of Matthew that in the last days God gonna send forth his angels and gather up everybody in the kingdom that offended and sinned and offended. So he gonna come through the church first, over in the book of Peter, and cast all them unfaithful members of the church into hell. They the first ones to hit it. Members of the church, unfaithful members of the church, the first ones going into hell.
That's putting stumbling blocks in front of their brothers and sisters.
Exactly.
Wow.
They the first ones he taking
Yes.
to hell. So, man, I'm gonna tell you. So David here, let's see what he did. Now this is some treacherous stuff, but it goes to show you it don't matter how gifted a man is.
No.
David was a prophet. He was a musician. He was a poet. He was a king. He was good looking. Woo, the Bible said David was good looking something. He was a fierce warrior. He was a battle-tested man. The dude was a shepherd. He was gifted with wisdom. He was gifted with knowledge. This dude was gifted. Oh, but when we don't let God lead us, when we don't let God lead us, verse 13, sister, read.
Verse 13. And when David had called him, he did eat and drink before him, and he made him drunk, and even he went out to lie on his bed with the servants of his Lord. but went not down to his house.
And 14,
And it came to pass in the morning that David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah.
read.
And he wrote in the letter, saying, Set ye Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle, and retire ye from him, that he may be smitten and die.
Read.
And it came to pass when Joab observed the city, that he assigned Uriah unto the place where he knew that valiant men were.
Come on.
And the men of the city went out and fought with Joab. And there fell some of the people of the servants of David. And Uriah the Hittite died also.
Now, now we're going to get back to David on how the war went. I want you to pay attention. Now, this was some treacherous, cold-blooded stuff. He sent the man's own death sentence in his own hand to take it to the man that's going to send him into battle, who was told to, once you get in the heat of battle, everybody draw back and let him keep on charging. And when he get over there, he going to look around and see nobody charging with it. And they went on and killed Uriah. Now, but watch when the word got back to David, how he just discontented how he felt about that man. Now, go back, read the next verse in verse 19.
18 and 19?
18 and 19.
Then Joab sent and told David all the things concerning the war, and charged the messenger, saying, When thou hast made an end of telling the matters of the war unto the king, and if so be that the king's wrath arise, and he say unto thee, Wherefore approached ye so nigh unto the city when ye did fight?
Read.
Knew ye not that they would shoot from the wall?
And jump down to verse 22.
So the messenger went and came and showed David all that Joab had sent from him.
Come on.
And the messenger said unto David, Surely the men prevailed against us, and came out unto us in the field, and we were upon them even unto the entering of the gate.
Let me clarify what's going on here. They're trying to figure out how do we go back and explain to David what has happened to Uriah.
He's going to be upset.
That he's going to be upset. David going to ask the question, why'd y'all get so close to the wall that the archers can shoot at you and you get killed? They knew that that wasn't a proper battle strategy.
Right.
So they trying to figure out now, because see, they don't know David has pulled a rope-a-dope.
Yes, sir.
They don't know that he pulled a flim-flam.
Yes, sir.
So they're trying to get their story straight before they go and tell David what was going on. All right, but now, what verse are you at, sister?
25.
Okay, come on with 24.
And the shooter shot from off the wall upon thy servants, and some of the king's servants be dead, and thy servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also.
Now check David out in his lapse of having God lead him. Listen at what he said about this man and his life.
Yes, sir.
Then David said unto the messenger, Thus shalt thou say unto Joab, Let not this thing displease thee, for the sword devoured one as well as another. Make thy battle more strong against the city, and overthrow it, and encourage thou him.
He said, well, hey, the sword devoured one like it devoured the other. He just discounted the man's death. Tell Joab, don't fret that. I'm all right.
Yep.
You know, everybody gonna die at some point in war. Now, watch this cold-blooded stuff. Read the next verse.
And when the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah, her husband, was dead, she mourned for her husband. And when the mourning was past, David sent and fetched her to his house, and she became his wife, and bare him a son. But the things that David had done displeased the Lord.
See, when you read this book, it's some cold-blooded. It shows you the cold-blooded nature of a man. When he doesn't let God lead him, he'll do anything. And that's from the pulpit to the people. If we don't let God lead us, I don't care how gifted, talented, whatever, you're subject to do anything. And if anybody don't believe that, Satan he already has them.
Yes, sir.
He said, well, he's dead now. We hate to hear it, but go get his wife. Bring her to me.
Let me console her a little bit.
Let me console her a little bit. And then, put a baby on her.
Yep. Yep.
But the book said the Lord watching the whole thing.
Yes.
Everybody, every man, when I was raising big man from a little boy, from a baby, what did I tell you never to do as a boy?
He was another man's wife.
I meant that. And I really pounded that into his head. Now, if you get weak and teenage, fired up, whatever, I don't care who come at you. Don't go and fool with another man's wife. There's too many out here.
Yeah.
Because somebody said, well, teach that. Why did you teach that to him? Because I was a young man who had read this Bible more times than a little. And I knew the danger of a man fooling with another man's wife and how God feel about that.
Yes.
He gonna whoop your behind and you won't see the belt, but you gonna know you getting a good whooping. And so now, not only are you gonna know you getting a good whooping, it's one thing a man desires in life more than anything, whether he even realizes it or not. Whether he realizes it or not. And what every man that has breath in his body craves down to the point of losing his mind, and that's his manhood. That's his manhood. You better hear me well. And when people, you can do a lot of things to a man. But if you ever infringe on his manhood, that man is subject to kill you.
Yes, sir.
Hear me well. He don't even know why he got his hands around your throat. But you struck a nerve there. Another man I've watched men, being an athlete and leading men and being a public servant and everything. A man, if you encroaching on him, you might step on his toe, do a lot of things, what. And you can better understand what the Bible is teaching, a kind word turns away what?
Right.
If I've offended a person or a person has offended me, if that person turns around and say, hey man, I'm sorry. Hey, it was my bad. I apologize. I beg your pardon. If the man ain't cuckoo and out of his brain, you know what most men gonna do?
We cool.
Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. But he gonna tell him, look, don't do that no more. He wants you to respect him now. Okay? If that dude has any sense, whatever. But if that same dude continue to bark, disrespect that man, and encroach on that man's manhood, somebody gonna be leaking in just a minute.
Yes.
For a woman, when I teach young children, that man will work with you, bend with you, put up with you, do all kind of stuff. And I'm not adhering or advocating violence at all. I'm telling you, brass tacks down to where the goats can get it for understanding. If that woman encroaches on that man's manhood, she's subject to be on the floor. Listen, that manhood, man, that manhood is a serious thing. And a man will kill you quicker than they say a cat can scratch his behind when you encroach on that man's manhood. The best thing to do is respect that man. And this is why the Bible teaches women, older women, teach the younger women
How to love that.
how to love that man,
Yes.
respect that man.
Yes.
Don't teach. See, what the women's is getting today is the opposite of that. And you know what men's is doing? They ain't even bothering with these women. Now these women want running around hollering, we can't find a man. We can't find a man. The man don't want nothing to do with them. There's a reason about why some of these cats don't want to be bothered with a woman. Because now I'm not taking his conditioning or side or none of that. I'm trying to help women understand some stuff that you don't understand about a man, and the only way you're going to get it is learning from a man. And when women haven't learned how to do that, because Satan is still got them competing, got them all jacked up, thinking that their security is based on their job, money, position, degree, you missing it. You're going to have that job, money, degree, and you're going to be lonely. The man told you, if you think you're lonely now, wait until
until
the night.
the night. See, the songs, all you got to do is listen to music. Tell you some stuff. Now, David, the reason why I taught Landre that, because in learning and being a young man, when another man cut in on another man's wife, you taking that man's heart out. You taking his heart out. You ripping his heart out. You ripping, and as a young man, I had women and still do coming after me like flies, and I ain't up here bragging. But you going on. You keep going. When I went to looking and shopping for what I wanted, I made sure I got it then as a teenage boy. And another thing, from being a public man and being the man I am, women come at me from all different angles, married and everything else. No, honey, you keep moving. Because see, I've read this book and I know what God's gonna do for me. So you take whatever you got and go on somewhere else with it. I don't need the trouble that's finna come with this here. See, it'll do a man all the good to stick and read this book. And that's why I taught Landre, don't do that. Because you wouldn't want no man doing that to you.
Right.
It'll cut your heart out as a man. And when a man do that, that's why the dude come up dead. That's why he'll kill everything in the house. Cat, dog, the man, the woman, and kill himself too. He out of his mind. He literally loses his mind if he ain't mighty careful. He'll lose his mind, because that's the one thing a man wants more than anything in the world, is respect my manhood. And if a woman learn to do that, and if other men know to do that with another man, they'll be fine. The world will be a better place. But when people don't do that, now, God looking at this here. David, he broke God's first institution, being a man of God. And God put that institution together when he joined man and woman and said, let no man put us under. Now, David, he got beside himself. He got beside himself. He saw what he wanted. He forgot all about God's statutes and judgment. And he started letting the flesh run him and rule him. And when he started allowing the flesh to run him and rule him, then he started doing what selfish ambition do. Even so, to the point that as soon as he killed the man, he dismissed the man's life, or sword devour one man as he do the other. Now bring me this woman. And he went on and laid with her and then got a baby. Cold-blooded stuff. But buddy, oh my God, David gonna wish 1,000 times over he hadn't done it. God put something on him that, whoo, Ajax, as they said, couldn't get off.
Well, just a quick question with that. Because it's a false teaching that's said over in the book of, I want to say, Hebrews. I want to say 10:26, somewhere in there, where it talks about if we sin willfully, there remains, after we have received the knowledge, there remains no more sacrifice for sin. Now, as we're going through this with David, is this a willful sin that David's doing?
Yes.
Talk to me. Say it confidently.
Yes.
It's a willful sin that he's committing. Is God gonna allow him forgiveness from it and to turn around from it? Or is the only thing he's facing is a fearful judgment that's taught over there in Hebrews chapter verse 27? Because some people teach that once you receive the knowledge, if you sin, then you're done. You're done. There's no more sacrifice. The only thing you're waiting for is a fearful judgment. And that's not what the Bible teaches. Over in the book of Hebrews, if you ever hear that and you read it, that's talking about abandoning the faith.
I was going to say, that's the context.
Yes, that's what it's talking about.
That's
when
what
you
willful
abandon, yes, sir, that's what it is. When you abandon the faith, then you don't have any sacrifice for sin, because you have to be in the faith in Christ's blood to have that forgiveness. And if it's not, and if you're not there, there is no sacrifice. And I just wanted to bring that out because if you ever hear that, people will hold you captive. That's why they think living the Christian life is so strict. There's nothing you can do, like the social gatherings we have. You can't do those things because that's against God. No, it's not.
Would you go over that again? I'm here at Hebrews 10:26.
What does it say?
27.
Go up to verse 23.
Yes.
And 23, 24, 25, and then get 26. Come on with it.
Let us hold fast the profession of our faith without wavering, for he is faithful that promised. And let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works.
Now, so in verse 23, he said, let us
Yes,
hold
sir.
to our what? Faith.
Faith.
Without what?
Wavering.
Wavering.
Wavering. Now, he's telling you the context
Yes,
of what
sir.
he's going to say on down.
Yes, sir.
Hold to your faith without wavering.
Yes.
And while holding to your faith without wavering, let us take time to really put and meditate and consider and put some
Yes.
thinking on how we can provoke one another unto love and
Yes.
good work. Now,
Yes.
verse 25, read.
Not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is,
Yes.
but exalting one another, and so much the more as ye see the day approaching.
Pause. So now he's telling them, don't forsake the assembly. Now, the word is forsake.
Yes.
That means you giving up your verse 23,
Yes.
your faith.
Yes.
Don't forsake your faith. This is what he's saying. Now, read verse, because the church was under persecution.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
people were just abandoning their faith. Now get verse 26.
For if we sin willfully,
That means if we walk away and
Yes.
abandon our faith
Yes.
willfully. This is not talking about if you commit an offense.
No.
And this is the way it's been
No.
erroneously taught down through the years with what the brother is bringing out. This is not talking about, you know, I know I shouldn't eat this piece of chocolate. And I know it's against my body, but I'm going to eat it anyhow. That's not what that's.
Falling in and out of sin.
Well, what I mean, willful.
Yeah.
Folks have taken the term willful
Yes,
sin to
sir.
mean,
Yes, sir.
you know, I know I shouldn't be doing 100 miles an hour. I'm just using
Yes.
in a 45 mile an hour zone, but I'm gonna do it anyhow. No, this go deeper than that.
Yes, sir.
This is talking about willfully abandoning verse 23. The what?
Absolutely. The faith.
faith.
The faith.
Yes.
If we do that, read.
for if we sin willfully after that we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remaineth no more sacrifice for sin.
See, Jesus ain't coming. I'm not coming back now to die again. I'm not coming back to establish the one faith for you again.
Right.
I'm not coming back to bring the one church for you again. If you walk away from this one church, one spirit, one hope, one Lord, one faith, and one baptism, and one God and Father, you've abandoned the only hope you have.
That's it. That's it. That's it.
Not just talking about you decide, well,
No.
I'm gonna sin.
No.
And that's not what that's talking about.
No.
It's talking about you abandoning your faith. Good point. Do you understand it now? All right. Now, so in chapter 12, so this is short now. We can run now because basically Nathan, God is going to direct Nathan. Remember that last verse said this thing David did displeased the Lord. God is watching it all.
Yes, sir.
Now, the man of God comes to Nathan, telling Nathan a parable, telling David a parable about this king had plenty of his own animals that he could choose from. A stranger or another king or some nobleman or somebody come through. And instead of reaching in his own flock and killing a kid or lamb to dress it, oh no, he goes and takes the only lamb that this man raised up as it was his own child.
Yes.
Took the man's lamb, killed it, dressed it, and then fed it to the man passing through. David, the Bible says, his anger got so hot that Nathan asked him, he said, well, what shall be done to this man that doeth such a thing? David in his haste of rage, he said, this man shall surely die.
Yep.
And that's when Nathan said and dropped a hammer on him.
You are that man.
You are the man.
You the man. That's it.
Boy, that's a heavy lick, ain't it?
Yes.
But now you got to remember, David wasn't in his right mind
No.
at the time God sent Nathan the prophet to him to tell him this. So Nathan had to dress that thing up with some wisdom. So he told it to him in a parable and made him condemn what?
Yourself.
Himself. You can't say I did. Because what was David in this crate? Now, David is a man of what? War.
Yes.
Killing folks is not one
Not a-
problem
not
at
a
all
problem
for
at
this
all.
man. He has killed, yeah, he have took out lions, bears, killing. The man is a killing machine. So Nathan, so when a man ain't in his right mind, Nathan kind of got to walk with some caution here. So that's when he said, David, you the man. He made him condemn his own self. Now, at that point, then God went on to work, continued to work with Nathan now. Now finish telling him the rest.
David. Working with David on that.
What I said, Nathan?
Nathan.
Thank
Yeah.
you, brother. He really went to working on David then.
Yeah.
Now, God now is going to now tell Nathan to all of what's going to go down with this deal and all of this here. He told him, the sword that you made sure that Uriah died from, get down to verse 10. Now, before I get 10, let me show you how God, see, when you go back and read the Bible, read verse 8, reader. Let me show you how God dealt with his people. This is the economy by which God had in place for his people. Who has the mic?
Sister.
And, okay.
Go ahead, sister.
And I gave thee thy master's house and thy master's wives into thy bosom, and gave thee the house of Israel.
Y'all mark this verse.
Huh?
No, I'm talking to them. Go ahead and mark that verse. Go ahead.
And gave thee the house of Israel and Judah, and if that had been too little, I would moreover have given unto thee such and such things.
Now, what he's letting them know, the African economy, when you go back and really study it, this is biblical, which proves when you study African, the way the people thought in Africa, this is proof in the pudding that this is the way God dealt with it. Theirs was based on abundance. Democracy, for it to work, and capitalism works on scarcity. In other words, for capitalism to work, you have to keep a certain people down so that the people who are prospering can be rich. But when you go back and you study the Bible, the way God dealt with it, and this was God's intention, hear me well, it was to provide man with so much abundance for everybody to have a plenty. Not on one somebody hogging up everything to where then these people over here are depressed and these people over here healthy. No, God created a world that has so many resources and minerals and resources that everybody could have plenty.
Yes, sir.
But Satan said, no, we want it all. And this is why when you read the story over in Luke 16, when it goes back to Abraham, when he said, no, you have Moses rather and the prophets. With the rich man that died,
Yes, sir.
you remember?
Yes, sir.
And he said, send somebody to tell my brothers not to come to this place. Now, what did the rich man have when he was living? He had plenty. But the poor man was laid at his what?
Okay.
Gate.
Big.
Begging for what? Crumbs. The crumb. See, he was in direct violation of God's
Yes.
will and economy. He wanted it so to where nobody lacked. You remember when they were out in the wilderness with the manna? And God rained down the manna, and then they got to grumbling about meat, want some meat. You remember that? God rained down so much quail, the Bible said it was what? 3 feet high or something. It was some number. It was high. Now, he told them on one occasion, don't get more than what you able to eat for that day.
Yeah.
God, why did you tell the people that? Because if you follow me, you're never going to have to worry about want. You're never going to have to worry about lack. God is going, his economy was built in such a way that nobody had to worry about nothing. And he was going to restore that principle if the people, when Jesus came on the scene, had have obeyed him. He was going to restore it. Now, but when they did not obey him and they killed him, okay, I'm going to let y'all be taken off and enslaved, and now you're going to be hit with an economy of where the rich getting richer and the poor getting poor. Man, when we didn't do what the man said, see, I just want you to see this. Now, that's chapter 12. He told him if that had been, he gave him nations. He gave him houses. He gave him plenty of women. He gave him all the riches he could have. And he told him, if that wasn't enough, I would have gave you more.
Bro, can I read this New
Please.
Testament just with what you're saying in the New Testament, if you want to write it down? It's 2 Corinthians chapter 8, 13 through 15, and it reads, "For I mean not that other be eased and you be burdened, but by an equality, that now at this time your abundance may be a supply for their want, and their abundance may also be a supply for your want, that there may be equality, as it's written, he that had gathered much had nothing left over, and he that gathered little had no lack."
Exactly. That was God's economy.
Yes.
That was his economy. But when Satan took over the economy, we're going to see to it that we want it all.
Yes, sir.
And y'all down here in the dirt, digging it out the mud. When you read this Bible, it's just heavy.
Yes,
Let's get ready to bring the plane down. So now, we know there that Bathsheba had the baby, and the baby, God didn't allow the baby to live. But while the baby was sick, we know the story that David fasted and prayed and so forth and what have you, and wouldn't eat anything. And then when the baby died, they asked David, it kind of, why are you washing your face and anointing your head and all, and eating now? David told him, said, while the baby was alive, there was a chance that God could heal him, but now the baby is gone. He can't come back to me, but David said, I can go to him.
Yes.
What that tell you about babies that die?
God got it.
Huh?
They're all right.
The baby is all right.
Yes.
So David said, I can go to him.
So that's why I could never understand, but I do now. I say that's why I could never understand when you see people baptizing little babies. They have no sin. They was born into sin, but when they live to become the knowledge of the truth and learn, that's when they responsible for that.
Correct.
But if you ain't never been taught, they just baptize little babies. I
Yeah.
never could figure that out.
Right.
But now I know.
And now you know.
I know now.
The baby is safe.
Right.
Yes, sir.
David said, the baby ain't coming back to me, but I can die and go to where the baby is.
That's just like we lost a sister when she was 8 years old, and Keandra lost a baby.
Exactly.
So I say, Mama, if we make it in, we're gonna see the kids. They're gonna be all right.
Exactly. So living in this world where there's so much killing of these babies is terrible. So many babies being aborted, millions every year. Them babies, God securing them babies in his arms of protection in heaven.
Yes, sir.
Those babies are before the Lord. It's us that's got to get to where the baby's going.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So now Solomon, the baby died. So David laid with Bathsheba again, and then Solomon came on the scene. And so Solomon was had. Now in chapter 13, we know that David had two sons here, Absalom and Amnon. One was by one woman, one was by another.
Yes.
But Tamar was Absalom's full-blooded sister. And Amnon just, oh man, she was beautiful, the Bible says. She was gorgeous. Well, so much so that he made himself sick with her beauty. She was just so beautiful. Now this is his half sister, which we said was his sister.
Right.
But now, so it was another man there that gave him. You got to be careful about the advice you take.
It's a kinfolk.
Jonadab. Jonadab said, well, if you wanna, well, cook up this story here. Tell your daddy you're sick and tell him to send Tamar to your room to minister after you. So he took the man's advice. He said, okay. So he made like he was sick, sent for Tamar. Tamar came, cooked him some cakes and ministering to him and so forth. He then sent all the men out the house, closed the door, locked the door behind him, and told him, bring the cakes over here, what have you. But he didn't want no cake. He didn't want no cake. So when she got close enough, the book say he grabbed her.
Yeah.
Now, the verse I want you to mark is this, because you'll need it. What the Bible says, verse 10 is where I just said, Ammon said unto her, bring me meat into the chamber that I may eat. Tamar took the cakes that she made and brought them to the chamber. Now, but he took hold of her and said, come lie with me. She told him, look, don't do this. We don't do this. But jump down to verse 14. Mark this verse. So when the Bible speaks about the man being the woman being the weaker vessel, this is what this is talking about. Not because she's weak spiritually or nothing like that, because some women got more spirituality than a man. It's the simple fact that he's bigger, stronger in stature and build. So, howbeit, he would not hearken unto her, but being what?
Stronger than she.
Stronger than she would.
Forced her to lay with her.
And lay with her. And so after he laid with her, then he hated her and then treated her bad. After he got what he wanted, he just mistreated her. And now Absalom, the brother, is going to find out what happened. And in finding out what happened, he was going, well, he basically went on and killed Ammon when he got the chance to. And he went on, make a long story short, he got to the point to where he could get to him. And I think after I didn't read the whole book, but I think some years had went by. This dude held that in his mind for, I think it was 3 years or so. He held that until he could plot and get to Amnon after 3 years. And when he got the time set, he took him out. Killed him. And that goes back to what God told David, the sword is not going to depart from your house.
Yes.
So that's basically, and after he did that, Absalom, he ended up leaving and fleeing and all that kind of stuff, which now, so we get the verses, the chapters we got to get now are what? 14, 15, and 16? Huh?
Yeah.
Okay, 14, 15, 16. Any questions or comments?
I wonder, did David ever, when Absalom did that, Amnon did that to his half sister, I wonder did David ever think back, this is what I did to Uriah. When I know he didn't rape her,
Yes.
but this is what I did to this man when I took his wife. And this is, I know that the relationship is different from wife to daughter.
Yes.
But now I can understand how he felt. Because it says David was wroth when that happened.
Yes.
So I wondered did it ever cross his mind. Now you know how Uriah didn't know it. But now you see the consequences. You did this to this man's wife, and now this was done to your daughter.
To answer your question, when you can pick that answer up when you get over in the book of Psalms. When you read over in the book of Psalms, David confessed that his mother and father had trained him and raised him right. Now, when you read about Psalms, when David is talking about how God kept him from the lion and kept him from this and that and the third, when you continue to look at some of the subheadings in that, he's talking about the time when he was running from Absalom.
Yes.
So when you read the book of Psalms will give the answer that yes, sir. Now, in this, no.
Right.
But when you read Psalms, David, he thought back on many of things. You remember when we read over in Psalm 51, where David was reflecting back on his life.
sir.
And he said that what I'm gonna do from this point on now is teach.
Yes.
Yeah, he thought
Yeah.
back on it. Yes, sir. One thing about David, he did a lot of meditating. He did a lot of meditating, and he was a person that taught us how to meditate, and he taught Solomon how to meditate. So in meditating, yes, sir, he thought back on it. But he didn't. We studied this in Sunday school. He didn't bother to correct Absalom. He didn't bother to correct.
Amnon.
I'm sorry.
Amnon.
No, Absalom. Absalom.
Oh, afterward, yeah.
After he killed,
Cause Absalom was mad with him because it did happen.
Because he
Because he didn't do nothing to Amnon. Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I got the names. Thank y'all for correcting.
Yeah,
Yeah, he didn't. I don't read the way he's corrected
right,
that man.
right.
I'm like, now David, what you doing? You making a difference here.
Yeah.
Why ain't you correcting jamming Amnon for what he did?
It was 2 years. That went
Was it 2? I knew it was something like that. So, thank you, brother.
But Amnon was the oldest, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And Absalom and Tamar by the concubine.
Was by the, is that right? Because
Okay.
well, I'd have to go back and pull it to make sure which one she was by, which one they was by. Yeah, because
All
it
of
wasn't,
them
it
were
wasn't, yeah, it wasn't from,
by,
it wasn't from
concubine.
Bathsheba,
Right.
because Solomon came from Bathsheba.
Bathsheba.
So yes, it was from one of the concubines. So these women that you ain't got no business being with, but they the ones giving you the blues, killing one another. You can cut me off, killing one another and.